A customer refused to tip a scarred waitress. Moments later, her veteran husband walked in and everything changed. Emily had seen all kinds of people in her 12 years as a waitress, from kind-hearted truckers who left big tips and called her ma'am, to tired single moms who barely had enough for coffee but always smiled. But nothing could prepare her for the man who walked into her diner that day. It was just after 2 p.m., the lull between the lunch and dinner rush. Emily, like always, moved quickly and quietly between tables. Her movements were efficient, not robotic, but practiced. Her face carried a faint curved scar on her left cheek, a reminder of a moment years ago that changed her life forever. Some people barely noticed it, others stared a second too long, and then there were a few who treated her differently because of it. The man entered with his teenage son, dressed in a crisp gray suit and polished shoes that clicked loudly on the floor. He didn't smile, didn't greet, just nodded at an empty booth and sat down heavily. His son followed, eyes fixed to his phone. Emily approached the table like she always did, calm, polite, and smiling. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Can I get you started with something to drink?" The man looked up at her, his eyes lingering on her scar longer than most. "Water," he said, then looked at his son. "You want soda? Get whatever. I'm not made of money." She jotted down the order with a smile, not reacting to the tone. She dealt with worse. As she turned to walk away, she heard the man mutter something. She didn't catch the words, but the boy snorted quietly. She didn't have to ask what it was about. She already knew. A few minutes later, she returned with their drinks and took the order. The man was curt, rude even, snapping about how long it would take. Emily kept her tone kind and professional. She disappeared into the kitchen. The cook, an old friend of hers, looked at her with a raised brow. "Everything okay out there?" he asked. Emily smiled. Same story, different face. Their food was out in 12 minutes. Hot, fresh, and exactly how they ordered. Emily brought the plates out carefully, placed them in front of the two, and added, "Let me know if you need anything else." The man didn't thank her. While they ate, Emily served other tables. She didn't stare or hover, but she could feel the man's eyes on her whenever she passed by. The son never looked up from his phone. Once they were done, she returned with the check and placed it gently on the table. "No rush," she said softly. The man scoffed, reached into his wallet, and pulled out some crumpled bills. He slammed them down on the table with 2 fingers. "Exact change," he said. "I don't tip damaged goods." Emily stood still for just a moment, just long enough for the silence to sting. Then she gave the smallest nod, turned away, and walked back behind the counter. She didn't cry, not here, but her heart ached in that same place it always had. Not because of the scar, but because some people believed a scar defined your worth. The man leaned back, clearly satisfied with himself. He told his son, "Lesson number 1, life doesn't reward weakness." His son just nodded, unsure if that was deep or just mean. He was too young to understand that both could be true. And then the bell above the door rang. A tall man in a military uniform stepped into the diner. His uniform was perfectly pressed, boots shining, and a row of medals across his chest. He walked with calm certainty, not arrogance, like someone who had seen the world and didn't need to prove anything anymore. Emily's face lit up the second she saw him. "You're early," she said with surprise. The soldier smiled gently. "Couldn't wait." He leaned forward and kissed her on the forehead. The entire diner noticed. Conversations quieted, heads turned. Even the man at the booth paused mid-sentence. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, but her eyes told a different story. He glanced toward the booth. His eyes narrowed slightly. That's when the young busboy, nervous but brave, stepped forward and said quietly, "Sir, that man insulted her, said she didn't deserve a tip because of her scar." The soldier turned toward the booth. The suited man looked up with a forced smile, trying to brush it off. "Just a misunderstanding." But the soldier stepped closer. "You refused to tip my wife because of a scar?" he asked, his voice calm but razor-sharp. The man stood up slowly. "Look, I didn't know she earned that scar saving a child from a burning building overseas. She didn't hesitate. She didn't wait for backup. She just ran in. A 5-year-old girl survived because of her, and you mocked her?" His tone never rose, but every word carried weight. The diner was silent. She's braver than anyone I've served with. She faced death and didn't blink. That scar you sneered at? It's proof she did something you never could. The man swallowed hard. I didn't mean... You meant every word. In front of your son. The boy looked up, his face now pale and embarrassed. You're teaching him that kindness is weakness, that appearance is more important than character, that people who don't look perfect don't deserve respect. There was a long pause. No one spoke. Then the soldier stepped back. But maybe today you taught him something else instead. The suited man, suddenly very small in a very big room, reached into his wallet. This time he pulled out a crisp $100 bill and placed it on the table. Without another word, he left the diner with his son trailing behind. As they passed Emily and her husband, neither of them could make eye contact. Then something incredible happened. A woman at a nearby table stood and began clapping. Then a couple at the window joined in. Then another man at the counter. Soon the entire diner was applauding, not just the soldier, but the woman who had silently served them all these years with grace and strength. Emily stood still for a moment, overwhelmed. Then she smiled, a real, soft smile that made her scar disappear altogether. The soldier wrapped his arm around her and whispered, "Let's go home." As they walked out of the diner together, hand in hand, the applause still echoed behind them. Because that day, a scarred waitress reminded a room full of strangers that real beauty isn't in how someone looks, but in what they've survived. And true strength, it doesn't shout. Sometimes it just serves coffee and waits for the world to notice. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share it. Subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us, behind every scar, there's a story worth hearing.